Everyone, thank you for being here today. This is a special event. Being that it is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, this is a wonderful opportunity to promote an organization here locally in Las Vegas called the Embracing Project. The organizer will speak later. Her name is Ester Brown. She is doing phenomenal work in helping children to find themselves and then being able to find a way to stand in their truth instead of being a victim to circumstance. And so she's going to talk more about that, so I don't want to elaborate on that right now. We have two other speakers who will go into more details. But what I'm here for, Charmaine Lee, I wrote my book about the gardenias bruise easily, giving silence a voice from abuse to love. And the reason for that was that I no longer wanted to continue to be a victim. So by doing so, in writing my book, it was to express the little details that may come up as far as bullying, which is really prominent today, bullying, and whether it is about different types of abuse. But it was to bring that out, to really bring it to exposure so that people of all ages are able to find out, wow, am I going through this? Does it look like this? Is it something really that is affecting me? I know when I was younger, I was around 16 years old, I did not know that. And at that time, it's not as knowledgeable as we are today. But I was involved in a gang associated with Guam. And I didn't know that because all I thought was a boyfriend. So here was my first time that I really went into being victimized. And everything that was that I had learned was how to be suppressed and how I had to be, and also you had the gang members watching you all the time. So it was really a place for me to look at, as being an adult now, to look back on how I can be of service now to all ages, because parents don't know. Some parents don't know. They really don't. They don't understand just exactly what it is that when their child becomes a victim. So as I'm speaking about being a victim, I was glorious in getting some enlightenment because I was able to find my own way on not being a victim anymore. And not everybody is fortunate in being able to do that. Even though we have information, even though we have professionals that can help us, it was not an easy road or path for myself to be able to get out of this abusive relationship, because everyone around me was watching. And this is what it was, men and women, all ages. That was the difference. It was all ages, and everywhere that I went, everywhere I turned, it was something that I had to be, and it was something that was acceptable. If I didn't do a certain thing, if I didn't act a certain way, I was definitely victimized, because I allowed it, yes, but you didn't. It was so subtle that I didn't know that, because this was a whole family unit, not just with the gangs. And so when I was outside of the house, there was association with gangs, but it looked like family getting together. And so people out there, please know that there's information about, domestic violence, but being aware of signs and being aware of subtle hints that you may not think that will be affecting you or your child, especially with bullying. And so how it happened for me was that we became boyfriend and girlfriend, and then so I was introduced to the family, and then there was bullying within his sisters, his brothers, and so it just became into the father, the mother. So just know that bullying is an issue, and I became victimized not knowing this because I wanted a family unit. I wanted to be accepted as part of the family. I wanted to be the one that would be respectable, and also where the parents would think highly of me. So know that as time went on, I was able to find my own path to get out of that. Because yes, is there that possibility of being passed around to different members in a sexual act? yes, there was a possibility, but it wasn't something that I wanted to get engaged in that activity, but it was around me. And so I didn't know at that time that that was part of the whole thing, that would be a place where they can utilize me as a vehicle or as a toy to do whatever it was that they wanted to do. When I say as a toy, they can manipulate, they could change the words or anything that I did. They can use me in being a part of bringing other girls at the time into this whole family type situation. And it was a family that was, you did not know, you just thought, oh, you're in a family, but it was definitely a family with other gang members. It was not something that was prominent at that time that said, oh, this is the Gomanian gang. But the minute that something happened and you see a bunch of them there and you don't realize it, you just get overwhelmed. Being 16, at 16 years old, I did not know that that was happening to me, and especially, when the word is passed on. I mean, they know what you're doing, they know where you are, being stalked, being watched, and your family being watched. It's just a place that really just dampened my whole world as a human being. So that's part of it, of how I became a victim and submitting all my power to everyone, because I wanted to be accepted. Where was I going to be accepted in a group? And as I went on in my life, I finally became a survivor, but it took a very long time for me to be able to just go, oh, I can be okay with who I am, be okay that I had searched for help, and be okay that I was grounded in who I was and accepting myself and loving myself. That was a really hard journey for me, because of the fact that I also had a lot of judgment from family, a lot of judgment from friends, and it was like, here she has been bullied, she is a part of a gang, and she is also victimized and abused. It was like all over my body, basically, and everywhere I went and I was talking to different people, it was like, oh, I'm looking for help, and they're like, okay, I'll talk to you later. And so at that time, you couldn't really speak it. And I'm talking about during my time. And so I am so happy that there are organizations like the Embracing Project. There are, professionals out there that are they're helping other people because they're knowledgeable and they know what to do to first response when you're on the scene, and also being such in law enforcement, to be able to be there for people and know what to say to them. Because one of the things that happened for me is that when I first went to, at that time, I'm talking about my time, is that when I first went to a police officer at that time in Los Angeles, they said it was my fault. So it was really not only demeaning, I just didn't know where to turn. And I knew at that time they didn't have enough where it was new. They didn't understand really what the gang was all about. They really didn't understand. But now, today, we have so much wealth of not only teachings, education, organization, collaboration. We have so much more. So in that time, in the years from the time I was 16 to where I am today, it is fantastic for me to know how much I've grown, but how much everyone that I know has grown. And especially to be able to know that I am in my power as a woman, my power as in my culture being Hawaiian Filipino, and also knowing that I have something more to offer. And because of this victory of overcoming abuse, overcoming being, looking for being accepted in the community because I've been abused, I have been able to turn that around, and I want to go and continue to help any age to recognize the sign, number one, to know that there is available help. There is mentors, there's one-on-one coaching, there are healing methods. Some people don't want to talk to professionals, so there's so many avenues that they can really discover themselves, take back their power and be able to live a full life. And that's why I'm here. I know living fully with so much wealth and taking it to the next step is where I truly know that each one of us out there, we are not alone. And that's what I truly want to give you out there, the message. No longer be silent. Speak up. Seek out the different people that are in your community. And if it's not in your community, call us if you're here in Las Vegas. And also, besides speaking up, stand up. Stand up and no longer be suppressed, because you are no longer alone to be silent, nor be repressed or suppressed. And it doesn't matter how old you are, because you know, when you turn to one person who could assist you, it's the beginning of a new life. And you, again, you're not alone. Don't be silent and live your life fully. And I want to go ahead and just continue to spread the light, spread the information, spread the knowledge. And so I want to go ahead and introduce our next speaker. Our next speaker is Tamia Dow, and I'm going to let her explain her wealth of education and experience, and she will be able to take you to what's next for you.
So thank you. I am so excited to be here today. And I am just wanting to say, stop the violence, don't be silent. And the reason I say this is because we lose too many people from silence. Even just recently, as 2 days ago, in the news here in Las Vegas, we lost a young mother in a domestic violence situation. And in Nevada, we define the domestic violence relationship different than most the other country does. The rest of the country defines it as, you know, husband, wife, brother, sister. We go as far as roommates and in-laws and things such as that. So this is why when you look at the statistics for Nevada, our statistics seem so high. Because we deal with roommate situations, we deal with boyfriend and girlfriend, extension of them, family members related to the boyfriend and girlfriend, that kind of things. Because anything that we can bring back to domestic violence, we put under the domestic violence category. So our numbers this year are bad. This year we have 28 people who have been classified as losing their lives at the hands of someone that loved them under a domestic violence homicide. Prior to this, last year, we had 13. Now, I was part of the initiative. It was a domestic violence initiative that was started by the local housing authority, and it was called Stop the Violence, Don't Be Silent. And we put out a public service announcement campaign, and we just put out much awareness, reference, talking and calling and reaching out to get help. Because our key message is there is help. Not just there is help, but there is also hope. So if you're in a situation right now where you're thinking, it is hopeless, no one cares, who's going to help me? Know that. You have 4 people today that are here to assure you that there's plenty of people out there to help you. And we are here to tell you how to use that help. We are here to help you know when it happens, what to do. So we've titled our presentation today, When It Happens. When it happens to you, when it happens to someone you love, when it happens to someone you know. What do you do? First thing is, you need to reach out. There's a saying, an expression that says, closed mouths don't get fed. And that's the same thing if you're in a desperate situation. If you're not speaking out, if you're not reaching out, unlike a little baby bird, nobody's coming to feed you. So you have to open your mouth and you have to let us know. Why am I saying let us know? Why am I saying it like this? Well, that's because my name is Tamia Dow, and I'm a retired domestic violence detective. I work with the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department for 23 years, and 8 of those years I work specifically with victims of domestic violence. I was the one on the other end of the phone, calling to follow up when you reported a domestic violence incident. What I want to encourage you with is that there is hope, and because someone you love has been arrested or taken out of your life, doesn't mean they're gone permanently, okay? But it does mean they're gone for now. And it's best that you use that time that you are apart, that you use that time to heal yourself. It's very important. Since leaving the police department, I have been very active with recovery and dealing with people recovering from the violence they've experienced and the trauma they've experienced in life, men and women. So I'm coming from a very interesting perspective now. So I've come from being the first responder police officer to the follow-up detective to now dealing with the actual hardcore victim in recovery on both sides, the offender and the victim. And it's a very unique view, really is. So here's what I want to say to you when it happens to you, okay? When it happens to you and you're the victim, pick up the phone. I show you this flyer because it's a flyer that shows resources available to everyone here in Nevada, and then you can also get on the internet and you can Google resources for yourself. There's generally 800 numbers that you can call to get domestic violence assistance. If you're being stalked, that type of assistance. If you're being bullied, all of these can be Googled, and there will be 800 numbers available to you. There is also, here in Nevada and also on the internet, there's means if you are currently in a gang situation or if you are currently in a sex traffic or some type of human trafficking situation where you can go on and you can find 800 numbers, you can go on and you can find links and resources to help you get out of that situation. One of the key things I really like to encourage people to do, and I taught this as I did my domestic violence awareness classes to my citizens during the time I was a police officer, is make a safety plan. And what a safety plan is about is getting yourself safely out of the situation. Getting yourself, getting your children, getting others who may be in the same situation as you. It's almost like, it's weird to think, and my friend Esther is here and she knows very well, it's almost like escaping from prison. And you make up your plan on how do I get out of this violent relationship, this unproductive relationship, this relationship that is doing this to me, like you don't exist. The self-esteem is just tattered, okay? And in so many of these domestic violence type situations, that's what we see. We see that our victims are robbed of their humanity. You know, you have a person who's standing strong and, you know, you may have seen them and knew them from school and knew them from work, and they were a confident person and they shared and they were loving and they reached out, and then you watch someone enter their lives. And this could be male or female, folks, okay? And you watch someone enter their lives. Boyfriend, husband, you know, girlfriend, whatever. And the person goes from the confident person that everyone loves to be around to this person here, that no one wants to be around and doesn't want to be around anybody else. And that is because of the home environment. The abuse in the home environment. Could be a child. Think about it. High school kid. Okay? Teen dating violence happens, you guys. All of this stuff happens in front of your eyes. So don't close your eyes. That's why I said stop the violence and don't be silent. This woman I started to share with you about, the most recent domestic violence victim here in Las Vegas, lived next door to a neighbor who had just spoke to her an hour before and never thought that an hour later she would have been violently stabbed to death in front of her own child. Think about this, people. We watch our neighbors, we know our co-workers, we love people in our family. Yet, we quietly sit by. Or we grumble amongst ourselves, right? I can't believe how he's treating her. I can't believe why he's still with her. This and this and this. And then next thing you know, he's been stabbed in his sleep. And whose fault is that? You saw it. Now, the problem with this, sadly, is that a victim will not admit they're a victim until it dawns on them that they're a victim, right?
Yes.
Because for the most part, it's just like any other type of situation. Like I told you, I work in a recovery program. And if someone is an addict, you can look at them and say, oh, you're an alcoholic, and you're just a drug abuser, and you need to stop running around with as many crazy people as you are, until they hit their rock bottom, until it becomes apparent to them. Talk to your blue in the face. It doesn't mean you can't continue to speak into their lives, though, okay? Many a mother, many a sister, many a brother has talked a family member through a safety plan and saved their life, okay? And what does a safety plan mean? Your plan to escape. He hits you one time. She punches you one time. And then what? It's okay, no, don't call the police, it's cool, right? By the time someone calls us, the police, to come, it's gone on many times. And then by the time we get involved, and I as a domestic violence detective, sadly, have seen it. I've lost some of my victims at the hands of their offenders. And it's because what happens? Just like addicts, right? They go back. Here's what I want to say to the family members, and we were talking about this on the radio show. Here's what I want to say to the family members, because you get discouraged. They keep going back. And I opened my house, I let this person in, this is my loved one, and now I'm dealing with this crazy person, right? Still, help. Seriously. Because if you close that door for them and on them, then the only recourse they have is to return and to return. And then maybe they can't return anymore because they're gone. Used, abused, and killed. Okay? So this is a reality. So part of my overall message today is there is help, yet sometimes you need to be the help. Because everybody here that's listening to me is listening because of the note, when it happens. When it happens to who? When it happens to you, when it happens to someone you love, when it happens to someone you know. What will you do to save a life? So I encourage each and every person here to do your research. If whatever situation your loved one is in, the person you know is in, do what you can to save a life. Thank you for coming.
When it happens, when domestic violence happens in a home or even in a local situation, after the police have secured the area, EMS arrives, pre-hospital emergency medicine arrives. And our goal there is to evaluate the health of the victim. Are they okay? Is their physical condition such that they have an opportunity to talk to police and talk to other people that are involved on the scene? Or do we need to get them into the hospital very quickly? My name is August Corales. I'm a paramedic. I've been a paramedic in the Las Vegas area and involved in emergency medicine for over 22 years. And when it happens, it is a very, very horrific event. On the pre-hospital emergency medicine side, for the paramedic side, the domestic violence calls are the most dangerous calls that we go to. Not only because of the events that are happening, excuse me, not only because of the events that are happening, because sometimes the assailant is still there with the victim. So we are there at the invitation of the police department. They actually go in there and secure the scene, and then we respond and hopefully take care of the victim. Sometimes we will actually hold short at a nice, safe distance away until we're invited into the area until that scene is secure. And even then, it is still a very, very dangerous area. We come into all sorts of people that are affected by this. So even though we go there for a victim, and I need to talk about this for a minute, it's more than just a female, more than just a male, more than just a young girl or middle-aged woman. Sometimes it's an older senior citizen person. And the worst case scenario for us is sometimes it's a child. So you have physical abuse, you have sexual abuse, you have battery involved, you have people actually on the brink of losing their lives. And that's what happens when we arrive. We are there to stabilize the situation, assess if their injuries are going to be we're going to assess that their injuries are such that they can stay and remain on scene. I have to tell you some of the questions we ask, and this might sound silly, and the horrible part about this event is we ask them a barrage of questions, and sometimes it's overwhelming. We ask, were they hit by anything? Were they hit with a fist? Were they hit with a bat? Were they hit with a stick? Were they stabbed? What's the depth of the knife that was used? Is it a small knife? Is it a large kitchen knife? All these things go into our head. We process all this information, and we say, hey, this person has a potential for injury, and then they may not be, even though they're standing right now, they may not be standing a minute from now. So we have to assess all these things into our heads. We have to process this in order to safely treat the victim. And I hate saying that word in this instance, but it is very, very true that we have to take care of somebody. And I'll tell you the reason why I hate saying that word. Because domestic violence affects everyone. Not just the person who is truly impacted, it affects their loved ones, their father, their mother, their sister, their brother, their friends. If they have children, their children are involved. So if you wanted to think about things, domestic violence is a tidal wave. It's very much epidemic in the United States. But a tidal wave starts with a ripple. You take a rock and you drop it into a nice still pool of water, and you see those ripples go out. So our purpose today is to talk about domestic violence awareness, and my goal is to help you understand what happens when EMS arrives. So we have a person who's injured in this incident. We had talked to them, we assessed them. How's their airway, how's their breathing, how's their circulation, what's the extent of their injuries? Do we have time here to be able to talk to and assess them, or do we need to get them in the hospital quickly and then go back to the hospital with lights and sirens on? So these are very, very high intensity, very, very critical things. Sadly, in cases of sexual assault, the victim, the person is emotionally devastated. However, what they'll try to do is they'll actually try to heal themselves. If they were sexually assaulted, they'll probably want to cover themselves up, or they'll even want to take a shower to get whatever filth, in their terms, off their skin. Sadly, we can't allow them to do that. There is evidence that's going to be collected off of this person's body. There's fibers, hair samples, all these things. So it's very, very difficult for them to go, I need to go now. And then even if they're not even clothed or very scantily clothed, for whatever reason, we need to preserve that. If they have a stab wound in their shirt or like blood on there, we need to take that shirt too. They cannot change their clothes. We need to take them as they are, whole, and into the ambulance. So it's a very, very difficult time, because sometimes they'll sit there and go, I don't want to go. I want to stay right here. He only hit me once, and it'll be okay. Folks, I have to tell you, the pattern of domestic violence has started well before any physical injuries happened. There's emotional abuse, there's mental abuse, there's manipulation. There's things that the assailant will do to try to control this person, and then eventually, when those measures have gone beyond what they can do, or if the assailant is feeling confident and feels like they can get away with it, then the physical abuse happens. So we take care of those injuries, we take care of what we need to do for that person in the immediate time. We try to stabilize them as best we can, and then we try to convince them, yes, you need to go to the hospital. If you're listening to this and you have a friend or someone you do know that suffers from domestic abuse, understand this. encourage your friends to go, encourage that person to go, simply because when they go to the hospital, there is an objective record of what happened. Do they have bruises? How big is the bruises? How fresh do they appear? A myriad of questions that are being documented. So this type of evidence gets presented into a medical record, and then that's available should they need it for later use in the court situations. There is also a pre-hospital record that the emergency medical responders will make. They'll write, they'll identify any marks, any other abnormalities that they find on this person. So that's also available and for use for helping put this person away or bringing these people to justice. So that's just a small aspect of what happens. There is also another thing that happens. Once we are able to convince this person that they're willing to go, we bring them into the hospital in the back of the ambulance. We check their vital signs again, making sure that they're okay. You may not know this, but I know this all too well. What happens is they have this period of silence when the doors of the ambulance close. And then people will typically do one of two things. They know that they're away from all these other people who've asked them a lot of questions. And some of the victims will remain silent. They'll lower their head and they'll just kind of reflect on things that are happening. Routinely, we'll ask them medical questions. What type of medical problems do you have? What type of medications are you on, if any? Are you allergic to any medications? Very much routine things that'll help us understand their medical record. So sometimes they're reluctant to talk, and that's okay. Our goal is to help them preserve their dignity. They've just gone through a horrific event, and as we help them preserve their dignity, we ask some silly questions like, are you okay to talk about this, or do you want some silence? And in those few minutes, they'll answer us, and sometimes they'll say, we want some silence, I don't want to talk about this, which is completely understandable. And in that time, we let them have their silence, we take care of other things, other diagnostic tests that we need to do, we explain everything. But before that, those ambulances doors open and we take them out, what we also do is we explain what's going to happen to you. We're taking you to a special area that they use for domestic violence issues. They have special kits, special tests that they're going to do, run things on you. This is all routine. So humanely, we let them understand what's going to happen next, because sometimes they'll never ever know. The other thing that we do is we actually listen. We want to know if there's another pattern of abuse that's happened that helps us verify, yes, there's a physical event that happened. Also, what we also do is we verify the pattern of emotional abuse. So we ask them, have you gotten into arguments before? Has he tried to threaten you? Has other things have happened to lead up to this domestic violence issues? And then it also goes into our written record, at least pre-hospitally, to let them know that yes, there's other things that happen. The big thing that I need to really impart on you, if you're a family member or a supportive person, or if you're going through this yourself, is this: that domestic violence typically happens in domestic violence victims are affected in a home type of environment. There's a pattern of domestic abuse that happens. I'm not saying this right. Let me see. I'm going to back up here. That domestic violence actually happens the reason why I want to use the word domestic violence is that it happens in a domicile, a home, an area where this person would truly feel that they're safe, or at least feel that they should be safe, and yet all these patterns of abuse actually come to them. I talked about the victims. Now let me talk about the abusers. The abusers might be a family member, regardless of gender, regardless of role in the family. Might be even a removed uncle or a distant uncle. The abusers might also even be a sibling, which is horrible. So these are some things that we need to find out in terms of understanding that pattern of abuse that's happened in the domicile. Once we get this pattern that's actually established with them, then we corroborate their physical injuries with this other non-physical documentation of the abuse that's been happening over a prolonged period of time. So we're able to present that to the emergency room, we're able to talk to the nurses, we're able to talk to the doctors. And why do we do this? Because we want this person to go to the hospital. We want them to go get checked out. But the bigger reason is when we take them to the hospital, there's even much more resources that the hospital is able to provide for them. Are they in a safe situation? Do they need to call social services? Can they call other charities or other organizations that can reach out and give them a safe place for the night? They'll even contact the police department even if the police department wasn't there in the original scene. So the person does need to go to the hospital regardless of how severe the injuries are or even how minor they are. The physical part will go away and eventually that will heal. What they also really need to get taken care of is the emotional abuse that's happened to them and then the mental aspect of this. So from a pre-hospital medical point of view, there's lots of aspects that we are able to provide them. We provide them a legal documentation of the events that happened, and then we're able to give them resources. This should not happen. I wish this part of my job never even existed, but sadly, you have people of all different personalities causing and inflicting this pain. They don't treat the person as a human being anymore. They treat them as something, as property or something that they own, or they feel like they have the right to abuse these people. They don't have that right. And then finally, what I'd like to impart upon you is this, is that these people who are going through this domestic violence, they're victims of this, what needs to happen is you need to be patient with them. You need to understand that a traumatic event has happened, even similar to death, because they no longer have a sense of self of who they are. So in depth, you've heard of Elizabeth Kubler-Ross talking about the 7 stages. And at some point, there is denial. Oh no, he only hit me once. Oh no, this didn't happen to me. And then at some point, there is anger. Oh my gosh, I wish this never happened to me. And then finally, there is acceptance. Oh, this did happen to me. It's no longer acceptable, and I want something done. And then your job as a family member or a supportive person is to help them reach that level of acceptance, and then their path for being healed, going from a victim of this event to a victor over this event, will start happening.
And now she's 14, going to 15. She found this guy on his 20s. That he's telling her all the things that she needs to hear. How beautiful you are, how pretty you are. They don't understand all the things, all the potential. I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to take you, and you're going to see the world with me. And suddenly, what it looked like a Cinderella story is a story of horror, really, right? But can we blame her, really? Can we blame her? We cannot blame her, we cannot judge her, because really we don't know where she has to go through, what she have been through, all the abandonment issues, all the things that she never had. Now when somebody come with those hopes, and somebody come and say, you know what, I'm going to take care of you, that's what they want to hear. Mm-hmm. And to tell you the truth, you know, all of us want to be taken care of, right? Mm-hmm. I love to take care of people, but I love to be taken care as well. And so those are kind of the situations that we find here in Las Vegas. When we talk about sex trafficking and minors, we don't have a lot of cases that the girls are being kidnapped from the streets, like that famous movie Taken. You know, everybody asks me, is it like Taken? Well, no. In my experience, we have some girls that have been kidnapped like that. But the majority of girls are being lured into the sex trafficking, lured into the prostitution because of the boyfriend or because of the girlfriend. You know, sometimes peer-to-peer recruitment happen too. It's a girlfriend that is from high school and they say, you know what, we're making good money, my friend is going to help you, you know, you are not happy at home, your mom do her thing anyway. Why you don't come and live with us? It's 3 or 4 of us in the apartment anyway. We will take care of you. You just gotta do some things. You close your eyes, and that's it. And so those are the situations that our girls sometimes encounter themselves. This is not about one particular ethnic group. This is not about being rich or poor. This is about our children. It doesn't matter where neighborhood they come from. I saw all colors, all shapes, all social backgrounds, with one mom, with mom and dad, with two moms. Everybody is in danger to be a victim, every child. So what I want to convey to you guys, whoever is listening to us, is if you are a parent, if you are a mother, if you are a father, if you are a grandfather, because nowadays a lot of the grandparents are raising our children too, pay attention to our kids. What are they wearing? How are they dressing? Are they going to school? Are you checking the attendance? Who are their friends? Do you know the names of your son or your daughter friends? Do you know where they are at 6 o'clock p.m.? Are they at home? And if they are not at home, where are they? And if they are in a friend's house, do you have the address? If something happened, if she or he doesn't come back, do you know where to go and look for them? So those are questions that sometimes, you know, you say, well, we know that. Do we really know that? And for me, what I see under my experience is that a lot of the parents, they really don't pay attention to their kids, and their kids are raising themselves. So it's so important that you get involved in the life of your child, because at the end of the day, that's your child. It's your responsibility. He or she didn't ask to be here in this planet Earth. We brought them, so we are responsible for them. In our organization, what we do is that we like to transform people. We work with predators too. I work with kids that are involved in gangs. So I work with so-called predators that they were victimized also. Because remember, sometimes violence is a cycle. Violence is something that is learned. So if I was raised in a violent environment, the way I communicate with others is violence. When you are a boy, normally, and the studies show this, and I also see this in my work, boys tend to be violent with others. Girls internalize violence, and they are violent with themselves. They cut themselves, they put themselves in situations that are danger to their own being, right? But we like to create an environment where we can turn kids that are involved in violence into peacemakers, into healers, into leaders of this community, into humanitarians. So we create programs where they not only can find peace on themselves, but they can promote peace in their own neighborhoods and with their own family. Sometimes it's so difficult because it's like you speak a complete different language to them, right? If I want something, I take it.
Right.
If I don't like you, I punch you.
Yeah.
You know. So that's the way some of our kids communicate, and that's the cycle that we're trying to break. But in order to, when you remove something, you have to put something instead. You cannot take something and leave an empty hole, because normally the same thing that you remove is going to come back if we don't teach them new habits, right? And sometimes habits are the hardest way, the hardest things to break. And I always put this example. When New Year's come, how many times do we say, I'm gonna quit smoking. I'm gonna do this diet. I'm gonna go to the gym, right? That's another big one. And then January 1st come and I'll do it tomorrow, right? Because we have those habits to do certain things. So sometimes Tammy was talking about why they don't leave, right? So we have girls that are in situations that are violent, and why they don't leave. A lot of people ask me all the time, so you work with them, you put them in programs, you're there for them, why they keep going back? Well, because it's a trauma bonding between the victim and the victimizer. It's very difficult to break that bond. It's like if you and I, we have been in a crash, in a plane crash, and only you and I survive. And we had gone through such a horrible experience, but that horrible experience created a special bond among us that nobody else can understand, only you and me. And that's what happens sometimes with our girls and their pimps. because they come from very similar backgrounds sometimes. They come from the same neighborhood sometimes. They know each other's family. And sometimes the victims are also part of that abuse cycle. And so they come, they experience that thing together, that trauma bound that we as an outsider sometimes we don't understand. So our belief is not only that we have to help the girls and the victims, but we have to help also the ones who are inflicting the pain. Because if not, we are only targeting 50% of the problem. And we can save as many girls as we can, but if we don't help those young boys how to treat women and how to be a man, then we are losing the battle. So from here, I want to tell you one more thing. Silence only helps the abuser, never the victim. So you have to stand up. And when you stand up, you're not only helping the victim, you're also helping the abuser at the same time. Peace.